Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. It's so great to have you here because I don't know how many parents, want to actually let their kids fail. So I like that you are all here, willing to think about it and letting our kids fail in a different way. So I hope that you come out of this with different ideas or different ways to think about failure and failing and how it actually can really build confidence and really build resilience. So I'm very excited you're here. I specialize in anxiety disorder, so it's a topic I feel really strongly about, working with kids and parents and families on really building that resiliency and confidence and different ways that we can do it. So I want to let you know that there's different ways that you can do it at home with your children. I can't wait for questions. I'm excited for questions, so please feel free to ask questions again. You could email me as well, or email through to get to me wherever you would like. It'd be great. So this is our agenda, what we're going to get through today, we'll make sure again at the end for questions. So if you never know failure, you'll never know success, right? And I think we can all believe that from our own experiences. But I want to talk a little bit just about the research that supports that, because I always feel better to know that I'm doing evidence-based work. That's what I do in my practice. And so I always feel like with all the information parents get, do this way. No, we're too involved. Now we're not involved enough. Like, what are we supposed to do? Let's go back to the research. What does the research say, and how can we learn from that? And then make our decisions about how we want to parent. So let's think about the benefits of failure, right? And here are some examples through the research. So educated guesses are beneficial for learning. Interestingly, the more confidence the child has in the answer, the more likely the learning will occur when they get the answer wrong, right? So it's actually really helpful to get the answer wrong and be confident about that answer being wrong, which is really interesting. Asking elementary school kids how someone got the wrong answer and how they got the right answer improve learning. So sometimes we have to do it wrong before we can do it right. And I think that, it makes sense, but I think we don't think about it, that teaching our kids in this way, and our kids definitely don't think about it. They want to get it right. They want to be perfect. They want to be the best, right? So intentionally making mistakes and correcting them enhances learning, right? So that's what I do a lot at my practice too, is having kids make mistakes to learn from them and learn that mistakes can actually be beneficial. Children learn better through trial and error because they encode this learning into their long-term memory. So the research really supports this idea of making mistakes first and in order to learn. And I bet you all have examples from your own lives too, where you all remember those incidents of what that mistake and what you learned from it. And really, it's such a powerful lesson, but it's really hard to kind of explain that. And so understanding that it's really important to make those mistakes and to really look at when a child does make a mistake, how do we respond to it? And we'll talk more about this a little bit, but I want to just make sure it's not just the error, right? It's about what happens after the error occurs. So the child needs that corrective feedback and needs an opportunity to process that feedback, and the feedback is key. So when we make a mistake, we don't want it to be punitive, right? But we want to label it as an opportunity. And I'm going to say that a bunch throughout this talk about mistakes as opportunities. There are opportunities to learn. And we want to just keep saying that in our heads over and over again, and to our kids again. What a great opportunity. Even when you're walking, and you made a mistake, like, oh, I thought pickup was at a different time, or, oh, I thought I had more time to get, wow, what a great opportunity to learn about time management, right? So what a great, that is something I want you to keep thinking about and saying, so that your kids think about mistakes in a different way. Interestingly, research shows that being complimented for effort after a fail doesn't help children feel better. And it also leaves them feeling like they can't improve, right? So I feel like that's opposite of what we've been told, right? Praise for effort, right? Praise for trying, right? And actually this is saying, let's do it a little bit differently. Let's not be like, oh, well, you tried, I didn't do well on that math test, or I didn't do well on that assessment. Well, but you tried really hard, right? Okay, but we're gonna talk about ways to say it differently to kids. Like, okay, that didn't go so well for you. Let's look at this as an opportunity to figure out what didn't go well and what strategies do you want to do differently versus like you tried really hard. So I want to kind of shift that idea about what we're praising for and what we're kind of processing when mistakes are being made. Okay, so if we trust the research, right, we know that it's very beneficial to make mistakes. It's really helpful. We can really learn from our mistakes, right? But why is this so hard to do, right? This is very hard to do. I don't know if it's easy for anyone, but in our culture right now. And let's talk about some, we call them thinking traps that we fall into as parents, right? Sometimes when there's a situation gone wrong for a child, maybe, a child is being mean to your child, maybe your child's struggling in a certain subject, or maybe not doing so well at a sport. We're thinking, it's my job to fix this, right? Or it's my job to make them happy, or how can I make them happy? That's kind of a question I get a lot. Or, you know what, I don't have time for this fail. Like, I got to fix this. I have like 500 other things to do. I don't have time to like let this play out. Or I sometimes think I have to make it better versus thinking about how can my kid make it better? What can they do? And how can I support them make the situation better? They don't have the skills to deal with this situation, right? And that sometimes our kids don't have the skills to deal with that. And what do? We go, well, they don't have the skills, so I need to help them. I need to fix it for them. I need to be the one to talk to the coach because they don't know how to do it. So I need to help them in that moment. Or especially as kids get older, I know we have maybe I don't know if we have a range of parents in here, but as they get older, right, the pressure builds for college, and like, this is too important a situation. We're talking about grades for college, or we're talking about college stuff here. This is too important to let them fail. I have to do this paper for them. So these are traps we all fall into. They're not rare. They happen all the time. So let's talk about why it is so hard, right? We feel this pressure that our kids need to meet some standard. And when this happens, we're more likely to pressure and push our kids. And this is also supported by research. So Wendy Grolnick's research shows that children of parents who are in high control, so meaning that they like to direct things or like have a say in things or kind of tell kids what to do, we're more likely to give up when frustrated, when doing a difficult problem, compared to children of parents who are autonomy supporting. So that means more like, hey, you figure it out. You got this. I know you can figure it out, parents. The kids of the autonomy supporting parents also got frustrated, but they kept going with the difficult task. So we want to have our kids keep going with tasks. We want them to keep trying. But if we are more involved or over in our kids' lives than we need to be, they're gonna get frustrated and give up. So we got to figure out a way to do it differently. And I don't say this, I say this as we, because as a parent myself, I have 2 teenage girls. I think we all feel the pressure. I mean, there is a Surgeon General's advisory about us. Like we need help, right? We are struggling. And I think we minimize this. We're like, yeah, it's hard parenting. No, there's actually an advisory about us. We are stressed, right? And when we are feeling this stress, we don't maybe do the things that maybe could help our kids. We think we gotta fix the problem, right? We have to do more intensive parenting. We need our kids to be successful in the future. We need them to get out and go to college and get a job, right? So it leads us to make decisions that maybe aren't gonna be the healthiest for our kids. So I wanna talk here today about, ways that we can help our kids and not being that over control, not letting them fail. So what we can do to help our kids fail. So let's first start and look at just some examples of what it looks like and what I'm talking about when we don't let our kids fail. And again, because we probably have a range of ages in here, it's really all ages, and some of these will apply more to teenagers, some will apply more to younger kids, so you can kind of just make a mental note if you have younger kids, or make a mental note if you have a teen. So, and again, these are all examples of that really happen, right? And because sometimes people are like, that doesn't really happen. No, these are all examples of things that really happen, right? And we all do them. And there's no blame here or no shame in it, but it all happens. And so we have to kind of figure out, how do we do it differently? So let's talk about what it looks like in the social realm, right? Maybe writing the text for a teen. I'm working with a college age student, and her best friend, her mom, is writing the text for her to this boy she likes. She's telling her, and my patient is telling me what a fail this is, because the mom has no idea what she's doing. She does not know how to write texts from a college sophomore, does not know what she's doing. So she's creating more of a fail, unfortunately, but she thinks she's trying to help her because her daughter doesn't know what to do, doesn't know how to talk to this boy, and she wants to help her. Writing the note to a teacher. I'm a big fan of having kids write their own notes to their teacher and you co-signing it. That's kind of learning how to, when they failed on they couldn't do their homework, they didn't understand it, they had 3 sporting events and they couldn't figure it out, they're nervous about a book report the next day, whatever it is, and we kind of write that note saying how they're feeling. I want the child to write that note. I want them to learn how to do it so the parent doesn't save them in that situation. I say this a lot with problem solving between siblings. I say to parents to try to be a little bit less helpful, so that kids can start to figure out their own problems in these situations and figure out their own solutions. So I think when we always solve the problem for our kids, when we separate the kids or we take the toy away when they're fighting about something or arguing about who gets to do something first, we're not allowing that fail. We're not allowing them to develop those problem-solving skills, and then we'll talk more about those. This is what I see at all ages. High school, not college, I guess. It probably happens in college, but high school, younger kids talking to the coach, hey, my kid's not getting a lot of playing time, or hey, why are you putting my kid in this position, versus having our kids be able to talk to the coach about it with our coaching. Talking to a peer's parent, sometimes there is appropriate time to do that, so I'm not saying that's always, but maybe it's a time for the child to learn that this is not a good friend for them. Maybe they need to have this fail in friendship in order for them to realize this peer is not being so nice to them, and maybe they need to move on to someone else. Or maybe there's maybe a friend is being really mean to your child, and you're like, that is so mean. That kid is so mean to you. Why don't you just stay away from them, right? And you go, oh, okay. But they're not learning. They're not that opportunity to say, well, maybe I can work it out with this peer. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. What can I do differently? So we don't let our kid try it out in some way, and we kind of just give them the answer. We're not letting them have this opportunity to learn something and fail in that way. This is one I see a lot with more younger kids. So I just put that down for kids who are really picky eaters, and they refuse to eat pizza at a birthday party, so they bring their own food, might bring their own food so they're not hungry. I think that's a great opportunity for a fail, to learn if you don't try new foods, you're gonna be hungry at a birthday party, right? Waking your teen up in the morning, I think that's a great opportunity to fail, to learn how to, for kids to buy old school alarm clocks and learn how to set their own alarms. So if they wake up late and they're late for school, let them have that learning experience. Making phone calls for teens, I think that's a great one, because I think most kids are not used to talking on the phone. They're used to texting, they're used to voice memo stuff. So doing that, those are some of the higher level things as kids get older. And even getting kids, juniors and seniors, ready for the real world events, learning how to grocery shop, learning how to cook, and learning how to do some budgets. So I think at all ages, there's always opportunities to let them kind of mess up, fail, and learn different ways. What does it look like when we don't let our kids fail, and from an emotion regulation perspective? Well, this could look like, I'm thinking about tantrums, I'm thinking about meltdowns that happen, I think, at all ages, to be honest. They're not just in the twos, they happen in middle school, they happen all the time, right? And so sometimes we think it's our job to end the meltdown, to make it stop, to make their pain go away. And really, a meltdown is just an important experience for kids to have, to really ride the wave up of their feelings and come down on their own. We want them to know we're we're not scared of their feelings. We're not upset about their feelings. Like you can have them. You can go all the way up in them, and you can come down on your own, and you know how to handle it. Right? Or if we see, let's say, for example, we see our kid like truly struggling with math homework, they can't do it, they're starting to cry, they're just like erasing, and it's really a struggle, and they're having a really hard time at it, and we're just, okay, calm down, it's okay, you know what, take a break, you don't need to do this, right? Maybe we're taking the demand away, but why not? Why is the struggle bad? Let's let them cry through it. Let them erase 5 times. Like, let them go through this experience and come on the other end and see if what they learned from it. So I think it's important not to think about removing the demand. Okay, fine, you don't have to do that. Or let me make that easier for you. Or I have savings from the struggle. That struggle, that fail, is actually going to teach them so much and teach them how to kind of regulate their own emotions without your help. Here are some examples of just like school and activities, like obvious or things like that. Again, maybe I don't know about you, but I'm the finder in my house. Like I find all the lost things. I don't know how I do it. I just have this ability. And then everyone just relies on me to find all the lost things, right? And then I don't teach them how to first of all, keep track of your things and not lose them, right? Because I'm always going to look in every closet and find them and make sure we're not late. So I think having them find the things, not being the finder, not being as helpful in your household. This happens a lot, bringing the homework to school. They left the homework. Can you, kids are not supposed to be texting in middle school, but they're texting, and can you bring it? Or, you see it on the kitchen table and they work so hard at it in elementary school, and you're like, should I bring this? They work so, right? What do I do? I don't know. It was like, right? So, okay, that's a great opportunity for a fail. I bring up this one over scheduling because I think sometimes this tends to happen when we see our kids feeling bored and where they're like, I'm bored and nothing to do, right? And we're like, oh, maybe I should really schedule some things. Maybe I should schedule some activities for this kid, they're so bored, right? And instead of letting them fail and be bored and come up with something that they want to do, right? So sometimes we need to just tolerate that feeling they're having and not come up with the solution in that moment. Doing the homework, this is a very common one, actually at all ages, right? Your kids just came back from, 3 hours of dance class, and they also had a basketball game, and they have homework to do, and you're like, I'm just gonna do this for you. This is no problem, right? No, maybe not. Maybe this is the strategic time where we're going to say, I'm not going to do this for you. I'm going to help you write the note about why you can't do it. I'm going to help you take responsibility for your actions, for, hey, maybe having a lot going on, maybe learning how to budget your time, learning how to be a student athlete or an actress athlete in some way. Rewriting essays, redoing work that kids do. Writing the email as your child, as I mentioned with the text. A lot of kids will, once you start revising kids' emails to teachers, they don't believe in themselves anymore. They don't think they are good at writing emails anymore. So they keep coming to you to fix it and make it perfect. So these are opportunities for them to learn and get that corrective feedback at a young age. So when they go off in the world, they learn how to write these emails. And here's just a common one, bringing the water bottle to practice, right? Gosh, they're gonna be so thirsty, they didn't drink anything, what to get dehydrated, right? So okay, I'm gonna let them fail, I'm gonna do it. So when we don't let our kids fail, we actually start to maintain anxiety and avoidance. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this as anxiety is, again, one of the main disorders that I treat. I see this a lot. So I'm going to give you an example about what I mean by this. Okay, so you can see these 2 graphs right here. And I'm going to give you just a common example. A common example of let's say your child has a book report, or something that's in front of the class the next day. It's a book report, or it's like an oral report, a group project, and they're freaking out about it. They're super nervous. They're really nervous that they have to do it in front of the class. They don't feel prepared. They didn't have enough time to really work on it. They're supposed to memorize part of it, and they haven't memorized it, or there's something really stressful about this, right? So let's say we pick the first side of the graph, and maybe you can see on the first side, there's like that red, and it says rescue, there's a red line, right, that's going up. Imagine that's the anxiety going up, right? Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Your kid is telling you, I can't go to school today. I can't handle it. I can't go. Please, please, please let me stay home. Let me stay home. Let me stay home. And you say, okay, fine, you can stay home. You can work on it. You'll do it. You don't have to do it today. You'll do it, you'll practice more and you'll do it tomorrow, or you'll do it the next day, right? So then you can see the yellow line, I hope, that goes down. That's the impact of the rescue. Thank goodness I don't have to go to school. I feel so much better. Yay. Thank you so much. That's great. I get to like hang out, or maybe you're going to run errands with your parent, or maybe you're going to watch TV, or you're going to do something else. And what happens in those type of situations when we rescue our kids in these situations, they remember the situation at the height of the fear. They remember the worst part of it, right? And what happens is they don't learn that the red dotted line will occur. Their anxiety will go down on its own. Because that's the beauty of anxiety and fear. It goes up and it goes down without us having to do anything about it. So they don't learn that they can habituate their anxiety. And they don't have an experience of mastery, and escape is reinforced. So what's more likely to happen is that this happens again when something scary happens. Maybe they get a stomach ache and they want you, like they're really nervous about they're going to throw up. So they call you from the nurse's office and want you to pick them up because that would be terrible if they threw up. And you run to the nurse's office and they're like, I feel better. And what happens is you get more and more calls from the nurse's office, right? So we want to do the opposite of this. We don't want to save them. We want to try to have them do something we call brave challenges or exposures in the real world. And that is to go to school that day, maybe with support. Maybe you call the guidance counselor and say they're having a rough time, or a school psychologist about this, but I'm dropping them off, or they're getting on that bus and they're going, and I just wanted to give you a heads up of what's going on. And so what happens is you can see the black little dotted line is the anxiety goes up, they handle the situation, they deal with it, they handle it, and it comes down on its own. And if with repeated exposures, repeatedly facing your fear, you are learning that anxiety passes on its own, that you can habituate it, and you can handle more than you think. And you get that reinforcement for hanging in and having that feeling of mastery. So I will tell you that I think if we sometimes are afraid to let our kids do this because we're afraid they're going to have a fail, this is actually a great opportunity when they're feeling that anxious in that moment, with support, to get them to face their fears in those times. All right, so letting our kids fail is going to help them in all these domains: social, academic, emotional. It's going to really help prepare them for the future. Okay, let's move on a little bit. I keep talking about this, mistakes as opportunities, so it'll get into your head and you'll talk like this, right? Because this is not normal. So Thomas Edison said, I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work, right? So we're going to think about the mistakes in a different way. And when we start to think about mistakes in a different way, we start to build and cultivate a culture of resilience and confidence. So I want to talk a little bit about this and talk about different ways that we can build that culture of resilience and confidence. And the first way I want to do it is talking about supportive statements. Supportive statements are really valuable. They're really helpful pretty much all the time. And if you I always say, like, if you don't remember one thing from my talk, like, remember this, because this will just help you forever. And a supportive statement is a statement that validates the child's feelings and shows that you believe in them. So we can always use this example, and we can, without needing to solve the problem for them, we can use a supportive statement. So you can say, I know you're really nervous about that book report, and I know you'll figure out a way to get through it. Or I know you're nervous about, going to that sleepaway camp, and you're nervous that you're not going to make friends, and I know you're going to figure out a way to get through this. So it's that belief that we're validating them. We're not minimizing. We're not saying, like, oh my gosh, you're going to be fine. That book report, you got this, like, so easy, or like, no one else knows what they're doing. Don't worry about it. We're not minimizing. We're not telling them that's not something to worry about. We're saying, yeah, I get it. This is something hard. This is something scary, but I believe in you and I know you can do it. And I like saying the and not the but, because I think when we have the but, it takes away. So I like to say and I know you're going to figure it out, or I know you can come up with a plan, and I'm happy to help you if you need help in this plan. So these supportive statements can be used all the time. Your kid doesn't want to go to sleep at night; they're really nervous. I know how scary it is to go to sleep on your own, and I believe in you. I know you can do it. So these really showing that confidence in your child, your belief in them helps them believe in themselves. And it starts to help them believe, kind of become more resilient, become more confident in these situations. Just want to check our time. Okay, good. I'm going to talk about some different ways that things you can do, things that you can do to keep cultivating that culture of resilience and confidence. So these are just like thinking about activities in a way of doing resilience and confidence. For example, I don't know about you, but like sometimes if your kids want to cook something and I don't know, there's food coloring everywhere and like, I don't know, eggs involved and there's shells flying everywhere. I mean, you're like, oh, this is disgusting, right? Like, who wants to deal with this? Like, no, let me do the eggs for you. I got this. You know what I mean? Or, like, I will dip the food coloring really carefully for you, right? So we're not letting them have that experience of failing, right? So maybe having this idea, I believe in you. I know you can figure it out. Like, and figuring out, okay, when all those eggshells get in there, what's your plan? What's your strategy to change it up, to make it better? How are you going to clean up this mess, right? So it takes so much more time, unfortunately, to do this way. But I think it can really, if you do it strategically, I'm not saying you do it all the time. Again, parents are stressed out. We have way too much on our plates. So I'm not saying, but when you can and you say, I actually have time to cultivate resilience today. I have time for this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to come up with a plan. I really like this one, sharing stories about characters who made mistakes and how they learned from them. I think I love to tell, like, when my kids were little, I had a character named Honey Bear, and Honey Bear seemed to have all the same experiences as my child had in situations. Honey Bear never wanted to get their shoes on to leave the door, right? Honey Bear always so I used to use that character and how that character got through situations that they didn't want to deal with, or they weren't comfortable with, or having a hard time with. So it doesn't always have to be a character. There's actually research that shows, talking about maybe your grandfather, grandmother, great-grandfather, maybe you have a lot of resiliency in your family, and actually talking to your kids about, like, our great-grandpa, he came here with no money, and what he was able to do, and he kept trying businesses, it didn't work out, and finally he found this one business and it worked out. So like figuring out a way to tell your story and to kind of encourage them to be maybe similar to that person in your family story. So kids really respond to that, and they start to identify as a family that stays strong, that is resilient, can build back when they have those failures. I also think it's really important to share your own stories of mistakes. I think, again, I just think it's so important to think about what our own mistakes are and how much we learn from them. I always think back when I think about resilience and building resilience and confidence. I always think about when I was in college, and I was actually, there's many like classes I was taking a class that had this topic in it, and we had to go observe preschool kids and kind of look for areas of resilience. And I just remember there was this little kid there. Everyone was 4. This kid was probably 4, but he was probably half the size of the other kids. He actually couldn't see very well, definitely had some developmental delays, and he was stuck in a giant tire. And he could not get out of this tire. And I just remember, like, oh my God, all I wanted to do was run over to the tire and like scoop him up and get him out of the tire. And I was like, oh my gosh, this poor kid. No, I can't believe that teacher is not getting him out of the tire. Like, he's kind of and she just sat there and watched him. And I just remember he got out of the tire. And I was like, oh, okay. And that stuck with me. I'm not going to tell you how many years later. Many years later, that story stuck with me, of resilience and confidence. Her belief in him that he could get out of the tire, and he did. I would have saved that kid and done it for him, got him out of the tire and been like, oh, you're going to be okay. But I think it's important. That mistake my mistake, I carry with me and I remember and I learn from it. So I think it's important when we share those stories and we remind ourselves how much we learn from our mistakes, we can be that coping model for our kids. Then really important as a coping model. You're not perfect as a coping model. You mess up, but you learn from something. So I think that's a really important thing to kind of carry with you is being that coping model. Um, as a family, if you have a child maybe who's like afraid to fail and has a lot of perfectionistic tendencies, I would then maybe trying to take some risks, trying to do things a little bit scary, a little bit out of the comfort zone. Maybe it's a family vacation where you're just all doing something you've never done before, and you're all just like being together, and not knowing what you're doing. Even asking your kids advice. Maybe, you know, you have a situation at work or there's a situation that's come up with a friend and you're like, I'm not sure really how to handle it. And maybe you could model for them, like, I'm not sure, I'm trying to come up with solutions. I'm not sure how to handle it. Maybe asking them if they had advice, teaching them some problem solving skills. I already talked about people, you know, sharing stories of people who took risks. I think this is an important one, allowing your children to choose their own style and clothing, like letting them be themselves, like figuring out their own ways of failing, maybe like what works for them and what doesn't. I think this is a really important one, acknowledging our own mistakes, owning it, and repair. There was a great question about this, actually. So I was glad someone brought it up because we really, if we want our kids to own their mistakes, we have to own our own. We have to say, okay, oh, I hear what happened. I know I yelled at you in that moment. And we don't go, but you weren't listening. I was, you know, like, I yelled at you and you didn't like that. And you know what? It's not in my values to yell at you, and I'm sorry I did that. Right? We own it, we repair it, and we say what we're going to do differently next time. And then we can also bring up what they're doing wrong too, but we're not going to qualify it. So it's really important we own our own mistakes so that we can say, like, mistakes are an opportunity for learning. Again, allowing independence at appropriate developmental levels. It's interesting, there's a whole treatment that is like in pilot study level at this point, but it's all about independence. It's called independence-focused therapy, and it's all about treating anxiety disorders by letting kids be more independent. We are very overprotective as this is at this time, and it's all about having kids do like things that maybe we would not normally think that they could handle or do. And what happens is, I'll give you an example of that. One girl was in this treatment study, and she was really afraid about sleeping by herself at night. And she happened to live in the city, and her independent activity that she was going to try was taking the bus by herself. She was 10. Right. And so it was like not, parents weren't so comfortable with it at first, you know, but when they figured out a plan, a way that they all felt comfortable, and she was able to do it, she felt great about it. And then all of a sudden she started able to sleep in her own bed. And, you know, when the therapist, I was like, well, what happened? What made you like be able to handle that and do that? And she's like, well, if I'm a kid who can take a bus by myself, I can sleep by myself. Right. So it actually shows that one independent activity over here can lead to more confidence in another activity over there. So it doesn't have to be the same exact thing. So building independence and confidence is a really important one. I'll show you at the end a whole list of activities. Again, you'd be really surprised at what age they suggest you do these activities. I was like, oh, okay, young kids can do these things, but it's really important. We don't let our kids do the things that they really can do. Encouraging vulnerability, knowing that letting kids know we have feelings too, that we feel our feelings, that we're allowed to have them, you know. Again, if you encourage vulnerability, and discussion of emotions, being able to say how you feel, then kids are more likely to be able to do that as well. This is one I do a lot in my office, brave challenges for making mistakes. An example of that for kids who are maybe afraid to make mistakes, afraid of a fail. I will have them do like a secret mission where they're going to make a mistake where their parent is not going to know. And usually it's like something like you're going to like leave your shoes in the middle of the hallway, or you're going to, leave your wet towels on the floor where your parent is going to get mad at you, and you're going to figure out a way how you can own it, repair, figure out how you're going to do it differently. So practicing not being perfect, practicing making mistakes. And finally, cultivating hope, really saying telling kids you have the power to change, you can do things in a different way, and I believe in you. I also just wanted to mention in terms of, I think because someone asked it, and I'll mention it again, but I think in making mistakes, I think sometimes, parents will say, well, like, they keep making the same mistakes, they're not learning from it in some ways. And I think that happens too. And so I always say, like, for example, kids maybe with ADHD need to make the mistake maybe a few more times than one might think in order to have a learning experience. So I would just say that, like, if their same mistake is being made and they keep having that fail, figuring out maybe, are they really learning from it? What strategy, are they going to try a new strategy and do something differently? Sometimes our kids don't have the skills. Remember that thinking trap we talked about? When parents saying, like, well, they don't have the skills to handle it. I have to fix the situation for them. I have to do the homework for them. They don't have the skill to write that email to the teacher or talk to that friend. Then I really think it's important to teach the problem solving skills, and collaborative problem solving is a great skill, actually at any age, I guess maybe starting like age 6 and up, I guess you could say. I mean, I think 5-year-olds could do this too. My friend who's a psychologist, her 5-year-old does this. I don't know if because she's a psychologist's daughter, but she's able to do this problem solving skill. But it's, again, anytime you're having maybe the same problem is coming up, maybe the same fail is happening, maybe they keep making the same mistake in that situation and they're not learning from it. Or maybe it's something just not working for you and your family. You really want to teach them problem solving skills. And this is a really great way to do it, right? So you bring up the problem, right, in the situation. And maybe it's that they're staying up too late. Maybe that when you tell them it's time to turn the iPad, give the iPad in, they're screaming and then like running around the house and not listening to you in those moments. So whatever the problem is, you bring it up, right? And you show empathy and compassion. Like, I know how much you love that iPad. I know it's so hard to give it to me in those moments, right? And asking your child to share their feelings about the issue. They can share their concerns, and then you share your concerns, and then you review both concerns in those ways, and then you show confidence that you can come up with a plan together. I'm working with she just turned 13, and she's having a lot of problem with her younger sibling, who she really resents so much. And there were so many things she felt that her parents didn't know about the way, she felt like she was treated, the way a sibling treated her. And I think if they had sat down and talked about it in a collaborative problem-solving way, these things would come out. So I think it's really interesting to hear how your kids feel in these moments. And they have a lot to say in them. So I think if you can think about collaborative problem-solving as a strategy to use to build their confidence, because if they feel that they can solve problems, they're more likely to be resilient. They're more likely to show confidence in themselves, and they're more likely to come to you when they have a problem, because they know you're not going to just tell them what to do or get mad at them. They're going to say, okay, we have a problem here. Let's try to figure it out together. Okay, so what do we want to see from our kids? I think we want to see some Albert Einsteins, right? It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer, right? I think that's what we want from our kids. And I think that's where growth mindset comes in. And I want to talk a little bit, because I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. I think they talk about that at schools all the time. So growth mindset, let's just review for anyone who doesn't know. Kids who believe that their talents can be developed through effort, useful strategies, and input from others. Kids with this mindset achieve more than kids with a fixed mindset. They enjoy learning more. And most people have a mixture of both. A fixed mindset is talents or innate gift, and these kids are more likely to give up when they fail or make mistakes. So if we want our kids to keep going, to show resiliency, we want to help our kids have a growth mindset. So it's not just about praising for effort. It's about asking for help from others. It's a willingness to try new strategies and coming back from setbacks and practicing more. Right? So we talk about our own failures and what we learned from them, which I talked about. And we want to talk to our kids about not the end product. We want to say to our kids after a game, Instead of saying, how was the game? Did you win? Did you score? Oh, are you learning something? Did you learn something new? What are you getting out of it? Are you enjoying it? We want to change from that, the end to what are you learning from it? What kind of mistakes did you make? What kind of strategies can you do differently? And I'm just going a little faster. So just a few more minutes. Okay. So I just want to do a little do's and don'ts. Again, not normally how we talk. So I want to just kind of mention this. So we want to say it like this. So let's say in baseball, it's not going well. They keep striking out. They're not doing well. So we might say, it seems like it's time for a new strategy in baseball, right? Instead, of saying like if they're complaining they're not doing well, they're not liking it, it's okay. Maybe you're just not cut out for this sport, right? Maybe you're really good at soccer. Maybe we should really do more soccer, right? It looks like this was too easy for you. Let's find something challenging so your brain can get even stronger, right? So we don't want to look at easy as being a good thing. We want to look at it as something, let's do more. Versus, that's correct. You did it so speedily and easily. Great work. How about, that's not correct. You don't understand this yet. What strategies can you try to understand it better? Versus, that's not correct. Are you paying attention in class? It seems like you're not even trying. Maybe this teacher isn't really teaching you so well. You worked so hard at becoming a good writer. Maybe you can challenge yourself with an advanced class and learn something you don't know how to do yet. Versus, you have a real talent for writing. You should take a creative writing class because you're so good at it, right? So again, these might be common things we might say, but it's kind of shifting how we talk about things that are easy, how we talk about things that are hard for our kids, and talking about it in just a little bit of a different way. So I want to just finish off by saying I think it's really hard. Again, I've talked about how hard it is to be a parent, and it's hard to be brave. And I always think it's like, we ask kids to be brave, and I ask parents to be brave as well. We have to really sometimes sit with our own distress and write out our own wave of feelings when our kids fail. I think that's probably the hardest part, and we want to just step in and take over and figure out and solve the problem and, write the email, write the essay, bring the homework, call the parents, the kids' parents to make that whatever it is that's happening stop. But sometimes we need to take that moment to pause and say to ourselves, am I calm enough to have this conversation? Do I know what lesson or value I want to instill? And if you don't, then maybe you're not ready to have that conversation. Maybe you need to go and cool yourself off and take a shower. Maybe you need to go take a walk, get some deep breaths. You don't have to do anything. And nothing is an emergency at that moment when there's been a fail. You can take time to reflect and think about what lesson you want to instill in your child. You also, if they're in a moment of panic and freaking out and they're like, I can't do this, I can't handle this, you don't have to match their intensity and make them calm down. You can actually lower your voice to a whisper, right? Or you can just be quiet and hear them out in those moments. Or maybe you just be really curious and you're just like, tell me more. I want to know more about what you're thinking and what you're feeling. Or, wow, sounds like there's a lot going on. So I want us to take that moment to slow things down. We don't need to fix the problem and make it better right away. We can take time to really pause and to really listen in those moments. And finally, I think for letting our kids fail, I've talked to just a parent about this just today, and I was talking about her mantra, and I was saying, reminding that our kids are not our extensions of us. They have their own journeys. It's their life. It's their turn. And I think when you want to fix something or make it better or, and jump in, I think that's when you say to yourself, it's their life. This is their journey. They have to figure it out. They have to mess up and figure it out on their own. So allowing our kids to have their feelings without trying to fix it, encouraging a growth mindset, and modeling vulnerability from learning from mistakes. I think these are some of the hardest things to do, but I think these are things that can really help kids gain that resilience, gain that confidence. So I talked a little fast because I wanted to make sure we have time for questions, and I don't want to keep everyone so late. But I do want to answer any questions that maybe I didn't get to or anything like that. And then I also will show you, first I'll just show you this independent activities And like, this is just like ideas, because I was always like, well, what independent activities are there for kids? You know what I mean? And thinking about, if you have an anxious child, anxious over here, well, what is it that they can do? And again, this is like allowing them to do things more on their own. There's actually a whole organization, I don't know if you're familiar, called Let Grow, and it's all about letting kids be more independent, letting them figure out their own solutions. It's all about, again, like that idea of independent activities, doing more things on their own. So you can see even like, I know this one, like I love this one, but whittle a stick with a knife. You know, that's what I was saying, and again, well, younger than you think, you know what I mean? Playing at sports at a park without your parents there, cutting your own hair, running around in the rain, going outside to catch or play with a bug, right? Just doing things on your own independently without parental supervision or without structure. So I just wanted to share that with you because I think it's really interesting, and it's a really great, if you go to that website, Let Grow, if you're interested in it, it's really cool. And again, it's the idea comes from, I don't know if you're familiar with the Anxious Generation, because Jonathan Haidt co-founded that organization, Let Grow. And it's all about how we overprotect our kids outside in the real world and underprotect them online. And so it's all about really learning to underprotect them, and learning how to let them be more independent out in the real world. Okay, so any questions? I know we'll turn off the video.